There's a certain kind of silence that shouldn't exist at a family dinner, the kind that fills the room with awkwardness. When you walk in and nobody looks up, and every seat is taken except yours. I stood there holding the pie I'd made earlier that day. It was blueberry and lemon, warm from the oven, just like how my daughter loved it when she was a kid. No one made a move toward it. No one stood to greet me. Just a sea of faces in their 30s, all either looking into their wine glasses or scrolling on their phones, pretending I wasn't there. "Mom," Lydia said, her voice flat as she didn't even bother to rise from her chair. "We didn't know you were coming." "I was invited," I said, trying to steady my voice, though my hands were shaking from the weight of the moment. "Last week, you told me to be here at 6 sharp. I reminded her. That was before we finalized the guest list. Her husband, Mark, interrupted. We had to limit it to close family and clients. "It's mostly business." "Close family," I thought bitterly. "I am your mother." But I didn't say it. Instead, I just gripped the pie tighter, trying to force the sting out of it. Lydia scanned the table. "There's no seat left, Mom," she said, almost as if she were stating a fact about the weather. It wasn't said with cruelty, but it still hit like a slap. No seat left. It was all I needed to hear. Her words rang out, hollow and final. And now the rest of the room was paying attention. Whispers filled the air. A waiter started walking toward me, but stopped short, unsure what to do with the woman standing at the entrance, holding a pie and looking like she didn't belong. I stared down at the pie, and then back at my daughter. "I baked this for you," I said quietly. Lydia gave me a smile that was more of a grimace. "That's sweet, but we've got dessert covered," she said, and Mark leaned forward, practically owning the room. "We really don't want to make a scene." "You of course not." "God forbid." I could feel the heat rise in my cheeks, but not out of shame. It was something heavier, more ancient, the kind of feeling that had been living in my chest for years, just waiting for a moment like this to come alive. I carefully set the pie on the hostess stand. No scene, just a simple gesture. "I won't trouble you," I said. And I turned, walking away. The hallway felt long, the plush carpet softening my footsteps. I passed the manager's station, and someone called out, "Mum." But I didn't turn. My legs felt weak, like all the weight of my 77 years had suddenly fallen into my knees. And then, just as I reached the door to the outside, a voice I hadn't heard in almost 2 decades cut through the air. "Mildred Kent." I froze. I would have recognized that voice anywhere. Warm, gravelly, and full of memories of afternoons spent cooking together, reading cookbooks aloud, and making meatloaf on rainy days. I turned around, and there he was, Harold Hensley. He was thinner now, but those eyes and that quiet smile were still the same. "You don't remember me?" he asked, stepping closer. The same gold pen still nestled in his blazer pocket. "Of course I do," I said, still too stunned to say anything else. "I own the place now," he said, nodding back toward the dining room. "Was just coming down from the office. Didn't expect to run into the person who got me into this business." I blinked. "You got into this because of me?" He smiled softly. "You gave me my first kitchen job in 1984. Said I had decent hands and a respectful attitude. You were the only one who thought I could cook." I swallowed, words catching in my throat. "Come on," he said, his voice warm with familiarity. "Let me show you something." Without fully understanding why, I followed him back down the hallway, away from the table that had no seat for me, and towards something that felt different, something I couldn't yet name. But whatever it was, it wasn't small, and it wasn't sorry. As we walked, he glanced over at me. "You still make that blueberry and lemon pie?" I nodded. "Just this morning. Left it on the hostess stand." "They didn't want it. They didn't want your pie." He echoed softly, clearly disappointed. "They said dessert was catered," I explained. He didn't respond right away, just shook his head and led me toward a door marked, "Staff only." "Where are we going?" I asked. "Upstairs," he said. "Office is above the kitchen. Has a view of the whole floor." We climbed the stairs, creaking slightly under my weight, but Harold didn't seem to notice. Or maybe he did, but he didn't mention it. That silence felt like understanding. The office was simple, clean desk, a mug holding down some papers, and a few photos taped to the filing cabinet. One of Harold with a younger version of himself by a food truck, another with a ribbon from a cooking competition, and one more of him in a chef's coat, grinning like a schoolboy. He gestured for me to sit. I sank into the chair, feeling the familiar creak of my bones as I did. Harold sat in the other chair, leaning forward. "I've been meaning to reach out for years," he said, his voice thoughtful. "Every time I thought of it, life got in the way. Thought I had more time. You always think you do," I replied quietly. "Until you don't?" he said. We sat there for a moment in a comfortable silence, not awkward, but like we were letting the past settle between us. "I meant what I said downstairs," he added. "You're the reason I got into this business." "You're giving me too much credit," I said with a half smile. "No, I'm not," he replied, his gaze steady. "I was 21, fresh out of a halfway house, no references, no one would give me a chance. You gave me dish duty and a uniform that didn't fit. And when I showed up 3 minutes late on my first shift, you didn't fire me. You asked if I'd eaten that day." I paused, the memory surfacing. "I remember. You looked like you hadn't slept in a week." He smiled. "You gave me chicken soup and told me to stop apologizing for trying." The memories hit me all at once. Me, trying to teach him to make hollandaise sauce without curdling it, telling him he had kitchen instincts, when no one else would. 6 months later, he'd been one of my best cooks. "Do you ever wonder what happened to that little catering business you helped fund?" he asked, snapping me back to the present. I blinked. "You mean the taco truck? It grew, then failed and grew again." Harold nodded. "Now it's this. This place, 3 locations now. Oakland, Scottsdale, and this one." I looked around the office, taking it all in. "It's beautiful," I said quietly. "And it's profitable." Harold grinned. "And it's always been my heart." He looked out the window at the dining room below, then turned to me. "I'm making you the majority owner, 51%. My head spun. "But I didn't invest in this. I haven't done anything." "You invested in me," he interrupted. "You believed in me when nobody else would." I stared at the papers in front of me, my name in bold letters at the top. "You can't just give me this," I said, my voice thick with disbelief. "It's not charity," Harold said softly. "I'm settling a debt." I didn't know what to say. The room felt surreal, the weight of his offer almost too much to process. "What do you expect me to do with this?" I asked finally. "Be exactly who you are," he said. "You don't need to cook or serve drinks. Just be here. This place needs someone who knows how to stand tall and speak up. Someone who's not afraid to say, 'This isn't right.'" I glanced down at the folder again. It felt heavy, solid, real. But still, I hesitated. "What about Lydia?" I asked quietly. He paused. "She knows enough. But she didn't want you to be involved. Thought you were too old. Thought it would hurt the brand." I closed the folder slowly. "She told me there was no seat at the table." Harold didn't respond, but the look in his eyes said everything. He didn't need to. "I'll take it," I said after a long moment. "Let's give them something to talk about." I raised a hand, suddenly feeling out of place in what should have been my own world. "Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt," I said. "Just needed somewhere to sit." A young woman, perhaps in her early 20s and clearly anxious, hurried over to pull out a chair for me. I lowered myself into it slowly, eyes scanning the room. Neither Lydia nor Mark had noticed me yet. They were busy raising glasses to a man in a blue blazer who looked like he had made a career out of selling property as a hobby. I watched them for a while. A strange mixture of emotions simmered inside me. Frustration, yes, but also something calmer, almost resembling peace. Harold came back, balancing 2 plates, each holding something delicate and roasted on a bed of greens. "Kitchen's on fire tonight," he said, setting one in front of me. "They asked what you wanted, and guessed right." I picked up my fork. The dish was flawless, warm, balanced, thoughtful. It was clear this had been made with care, not just thrown together. I chewed, swallowed, and looked back at the long table where I wasn't included. For the first time in ages, I didn't feel the urge to beg for a seat. True ownership is like that. You don't need an invitation. You just take your place because it's yours. And tonight, in my blue cardigan with Harold sipping sparkling water beside me, I could feel it settling deep into my bones. A nervous young waitress approached, twisting the string of her apron in her hands. "Miss Kent, would you like anything else?" she asked, voice soft. I gave a warm smile. "No, thank you. This is perfect." She hesitated, then glanced at Harold. He gave a slight nod and she seemed to relax. "Everyone's talking," she whispered. "They say you're the new boss." I didn't correct her. Didn't clarify. I had only signed the papers an hour ago, but that didn't matter. What mattered was the way she looked at me, not with pity, not with confusion, but with genuine respect. The kind that takes time to earn. Behind her, I could sense the buzz of the staff, cooks sharing whispers, the bartender glancing over as he polished glasses. No one made a move toward the long table. Not yet. Lydia noticed first. Her brow furrowed as she scanned the room like a radar. Her gaze locked onto me. She didn't smile. She muttered something to Mark, who slowly turned around, his jaw tightening as he recognized me. I could almost hear his mind racing. Calculating, assessing, planning damage control. They both stood. I took my time, finishing a bite of roasted carrots. They crossed the floor, their approach deliberate, like diplomats stepping into enemy territory. Lydia pasted on a smile, one too wide, too polished, too perfect. "Mother," she said, the word brittle, like she hadn't expected to see me. "What are you doing here?" Mark's voice was lower. "We didn't realize you had a seat," I finished for him. "Oh, we didn't realize," he corrected. Lydia glanced at Harold before looking back at me, her smile stiffening. "Are you too?" "I'm the new majority owner," I said evenly. "Harold brought me in because you both seemed to think this was only yours." Mark opened his mouth, then closed it. Lydia's smile flickered for a moment. "What?" she said, incredulous. "Owner," I repeated. "As in, the one who approves your reservations now." Her eyes widened. "You're joking." I turned slightly in my seat, nodding at the hostess who had been watching us with quiet interest. "Could you bring me the check for table 9? I asked. She gave a tiny smirk and went off. "This is a business dinner," Lydia whispered, voice dropping an octave. "These are our clients. This was supposed to be private. You made it public the moment you humiliated me in front of 30 people. I replied. "And this is my house now. So if I want to eat at my table, I will." Mark clenched his fists. Lydia looked around, suddenly aware that all eyes were on her. "Mother," she whispered, more as a plea than anything else. "Can we speak in private?" she asked, her voice brittle. "No," I said, the answer firm. "Not tonight." They stood there, like two people who had walked onto a stage only to realize the script had changed. Lydia's face, always so composed, betrayed a twitch at the corner of her eye. Mark's expression soared like he had bitten into something rancid. But I didn't move, didn't raise my voice. I just sat there, letting the moment linger. The room, once full of chatter, had quieted. The murmur softened. Harold stayed relaxed beside me, arms crossed, not interfering, letting me own the moment. "You're making a scene," Lydia hissed under her breath. "Am I?" I raised an eyebrow. "I thought I was just eating dinner." "You're embarrassing us," Mark added, voice tight. "In front of clients." I glanced past them toward the long table, where the man in the blue blazer glanced over, giving me an intrigued look. I met his eyes calmly until he turned away first. "Embarrassment," I said quietly, "is when your own daughter looks you in the eye and pretends you're invisible. Embarrassment is standing in a room holding a pie, only to be told there's no room for you. So, if anyone should feel embarrassed tonight, it's not me." Lydia's jaw clenched tightly. "We didn't mean it like that," she said, voice strained. "You did," I replied. "Not with malice, but with comfort. You've grown so comfortable believing I no longer mattered." I watched the realization hit her. It wasn't a blow, but something worse, recognition. Mark cleared his throat. "Maybe we got carried away," he said, trying to backtrack. "But this isn't how things are done in professional settings." "This isn't a professional setting," I said, voice cool. "This is a restaurant. My restaurant. And you're here because I didn't throw you out." The words landed heavy in the air. I set my napkin down gently on the table. "If you'll excuse me," I added. "Dessert is coming." Lydia opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Mark pulled her by the elbow, muttering, "Let's go. We'll talk later." They turned and retreated, but not before the hostess arrived with my dessert, a small plate in hand. "Lemon tart," she said, a shy smile playing on her lips. "On the house." I smiled. Thank you, darling. The first bite was slow, savoring the warmth of it. It wasn't as perfect as my own, but it didn't need to be. It was warm, respectful, offered, not expected. Across the room, Lydia and Mark returned to their table, stiff as statues. Lydia forced a laugh at something one of the clients said, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Funny how quickly power shifts, not with noise, but with quiet presence. Harold refilled my water glass. You handled that better than I would have, he said, leaning back. I didn't do it for effect, I replied. I know, he said. That's why it worked. I looked at the golden crust of my plate and then out across the room. No one tells you that one day. You'll stop being part of their plans. They'll stop seeing you as necessary. But you'll still be here, breathing, loving, and doing what you do, while they pretend you've faded. Harold nodded slowly. They're wrong, he said. I looked at him and smiled. Not anymore. Did she actually say that? She did. I clenched the arms of the chair, my fingers trembling. Did you believe her? I asked. I asked if you'd been evaluated by a doctor, she said. No. But the signs were clear. I told her I wouldn't take action without documentation, I replied. Even then, I wasn't sure I would. She wanted you to pull the business away before it even reached you, Harold said, his voice gentle. She thought you wouldn't fight for it. I let his words settle over me. The years of careful distance, the subtle evasion. How she stopped asking about my health, not because she didn't care, but because she'd already decided what my future looked like. Someone fading. And fading people, apparently, didn't need to sign papers or have a seat at the table. She never asked, I said softly. She never once sat down and said, Mom, what do you want? No, Harold agreed. She assumed she knew. I sat back thinking of all the times I had shown up for her. Graduations, court hearings, middle of the night ER visits when Nathan was teething and she couldn't drive. The checks I wrote, the furniture I helped pick out after the first house flooded. All those times I stepped aside so she could take the lead. I want a formal statement, I said, breaking the silence. Harold raised an eyebrow. A statement about what? Ownership, I said. I want my name on everything, legally, publicly. I want it on the window, on the staff board, in every email signature with reservation confirmations. Harold grinned. No, you're talking like a boss. I'm tired of being a footnote in my own story, I said. It ends now. When I got home that night, my phone was buzzing, voicemails, missed calls, texts from Lydia, Mom, we need to talk. There's been some confusion. You're misunderstanding what happened. Please call me. I didn't reply. Not yet. Let her sit in the silence. Let her feel what it's like when the world she takes for granted stops spinning around her. The staff meeting was set for 10 a.m. sharp. I arrived 15 minutes early, an old habit. Harold was already there, shifting tables to make room in the main dining area. Didn't expect you this early, he said, handing me a fresh mug of coffee. I like to see things before they unfold, I answered, taking a sip. People show a lot through their body language before they even open their mouths. One by one, the staff filed in. Chefs in aprons, hosts adjusting their name tags, servers tying their hair back. I recognized most of them by now. Carmen, the head chef, Lucas, the bar manager, Shayla from the front desk. Some of them were curious, others cautious. Harold stood first. Thanks for coming, he said. As you all know, there's been a change in the structure here. I wanted you to hear it from both of us. He nodded toward me. I rose slowly, not out of formality, but because my knees now had their own schedule. I'm Mildred Kent, I began. Some of you already know me. For those who don't, I'm the reason Harold still knows how to poach an egg properly. A few chuckles broke the tension. I've joined as a partner, I continued. But not just in title. I'm here. I'll be around. I'll be asking questions. I'll be watching how we treat each other and how we treat the people who walk through that door. A Carmen raised an eyebrow. What's your role exactly? I'm not here to critique your recipes, I said. But I am here to make sure we keep what made this place special. And that is, Lucas asked. Kindness, I said. Competence. Community. You don't build a great restaurant by impressing food critics. You build it by remembering the name of the woman who comes in every Tuesday for chicken soup and sits by the window, Because it makes her feel less alone. The room went quiet. A few heads nodded. I won't be on the payroll, I added. But I've asked Harold to give me weekly updates. I want to know who's showing up late, who's taking shortcuts, and who's going the extra mile. A young server raised her hand. Does this mean there are changes coming? Yes, I said. But not all at once and not without reason. Shayla crossed her arms. What about Lydia? She said she was in charge. Harold spoke up. Lydia and Mark are no longer involved in the daily operations. They may still have investment claims, but the decisions are under new management. Effective immediately. I saw a mix of relief and uncertainty on the staff's faces. That's all for today, I said. Go back to work. Don't worry. I don't bite. Laughter bubbled up as the staff stood and returned to their posts, except for Carmen. She waited until the room had emptied, then came over to me. My mother was a line cook in Brooklyn for 30 years, she said. Never made it past the grill. No one took her seriously. I nodded. Sounds familiar. She died thinking she was replaceable, Carmen added. I met her gaze. She wasn't. Carmen gave me a small smile. Neither are you. Then, with a final look, she said, Welcome to the kitchen. Later, Harold came in with a small package. This came for you, he said, handing it to me. No name, no return address. Inside was a thick envelope embossed with silver ink. It was an invitation to Lydia's family reconciliation dinner at a venue across town. I laughed. Not bitterly, just tired. She was already trying to reclaim the narrative. And for once, I wasn't going to follow her script. The next day, I walked into the dining room around noon to find Nathan wiping down the menus at the host stand. His shirt was pressed, sleeves rolled up, shoes polished. But it was the look in his eyes that caught me. Focused, present, like he wasn't just passing through. Early shift, I asked. Volunteered, he replied. I wanted to learn about opening prep. Carmen said I could shadow if I finished setup. Smart, I said. Do the quiet work first. That's how people notice. He smiled shyly. Everyone's been nice. Not just because of you. I think they actually like having me around. They probably do, I said softly. You're not afraid to start small. That's rare these days. He hesitated, then lowered his voice. Did Mom really try to cut you out of the business? I nodded once. She did. I don't get it, he said, frowning. She always talks about family, about values. She's the one who told me to always honor where we come from. She believes she gets to define that, I said. Nathan looked down at the menu in his hands, then back at me. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why didn't you push back sooner? I mean, you helped raise me. You helped raise her. Why let it get this far? I took a deep breath, long and slow. Because I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought if I gave quietly, stayed humble, and didn't ask for recognition, it would come back around. In kindness. Did it? He asked. Not from her, I said. But from you, maybe. He flushed slightly but didn't look away. Here's what I've learned, I said softly. If you give to people who've never learned how to be grateful, they won't start just because you give more. They'll just expect more next time. He nodded slowly. I never wanted revenge, I added. I just wanted peace. This restaurant gave me that. It gave me back a name. And Nathan swallowed hard. I'm glad you didn't let her erase you. She tried, I said. She's still trying. He looked puzzled. Still. I pulled the invitation from my bag and handed it to him. He opened it carefully, scanning the elegant script. Reconciliation dinner, he read. At the Redwood Club next weekend. Formal attire. Curated guest list. She's trying to manage the fallout, I said. Nathan frowned. Public shame isn't her style. She wants to rewrite the story, turn it into a graceful misunderstanding. A story where I was never really excluded. Just misplaced. You going? I asked. I shook my head. I already have a table right here. He nodded firmly. Then, after a pause, he said, I'll skip it. Too? You don't have to, I said gently. You're still her son. I'm yours too, he said. And I'd rather spend my weekend learning from someone who doesn't rewrite history just to feel better about herself. No. I said it firmly, without hesitation. She blinked as if she couldn't believe I'd spoken those words. You haven't even heard me out. I said no. I repeated. You don't get to decide which parts of me are worth showing and which ones should stay hidden. I'm not a brand. I'm a person. She stared at me, taken aback. But I didn't waver. You're letting pride block what matters. This place, this legacy, it was built with pride, my pride, and that's why it's still standing today. But Lydia, you've made your choices, and I'm done trying to squeeze myself into them. She stayed silent, stunned. I didn't wait for her response. I simply turned and walked toward the kitchen, slowly, firmly, with purpose. Behind me, I heard the scrape of her chair, but she didn't follow. In the prep room, Carmen looked up from chopping herbs as casual as ever. Everything okay? She asked. Better than okay, I answered, grabbing an apron. Let's get back to work. And that was it. No shouting, no dramatic exits, just clarity. Sometimes dignity isn't about reclaiming what's been taken from you. It's about what you refuse to engage in. What you refuse to perform. The second dinner was nothing like the first. No long banquet tables, no fancy place cards or speeches about partnerships and projections. It was simple, soft music. Candlelight, a quiet, intimate gathering. This time it was my table, and everyone who sat at it chose to be there. Nathan arrived early in his black apron. Even though I told him to relax and enjoy the meal. Carmen joined us during her break, hair tied up and laughter easy. Harold brought out 2 bottles of wine from his personal collection and insisted we open both. Frances came in, strutting like she owned the place, and whispered to me. I wore perfume, so keep me away from the salmon. We all laughed. The room was cozy, filled with the kind of warmth you don't find in corporate dinners. The kind of gathering where people actually listen between bites. Where no one checks their phone. No one's trying to prove anything. Nathan handed me a neatly folded napkin, my initials stitched in the corner. I made this at school last semester, he said, looking a little embarrassed. I didn't know what to do with it then. It belongs here, I said simply. The meal was slow and generous. Roasted chicken, grilled peaches, fresh bread. Nothing fancy, just right. Harold gave a quiet toast without fanfare, just lifting his glass and saying, to women who don't disappear when they're told to. We clinked our glasses. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I didn't need to brace myself for anything. No defense, no performance, just presence. After the plates were cleared and the light softened, Carmen handed me a small box. It's silly, she said, but I wanted to mark the day. Inside was a brass nameplate engraved with Kempt. Owner, you made this? I asked, surprised. Yeah, she shrugged. I told the engraver it was for the backbone of the kitchen. He got it wrong at first, called you the matriarch. I told him, that's not a title. That's a warning. We laughed, but I kept the nameplate close. Later, when the last guests had gone and the chairs were pushed in, I sat alone in the quiet. Harold passed by, towel over his shoulder, and stopped when he saw me. You okay? Better than I've been in years, I said, smiling. He sat down beside me. Not as a co-owner, not as a chef, but as someone who understood the power of stillness. You think Lydia will come around? Maybe, I said. But if she does, it won't be because I begged for it. He sipped his tea, deep in thought. Did you ever think it would end like this? I glanced around the empty dining room, the soft hum of the dishwasher in the back, and shook my head. No, I said quietly. But I never thought it had to end. I just forgot I could begin again. The first time a customer asked for the owner, it threw me off. She was in her 60s, sharp-dressed, with the weary look of someone who had earned every line on her face. Her name was Dolores. I want to speak to the one who made that soup, she said, arms crossed. Because I haven't had anything like it since my mother passed. Harold pointed her toward me without hesitation. She walked straight over to my table, sizing me up. Then yes, I nodded. Good, she said. Because I came in here with a headache, and now I feel like someone just pressed a warm cloth to my whole life. I laughed. That's what chicken broth does. She stayed for dessert, said she'd be back next Thursday, and brought her neighbor the week after that. They've been regulars ever since. And after that, other women started coming in, women who wanted to be heard. Some just wanted to sit, others had stories to share. One brought divorce papers, another a prayer card. One showed me a broken watch her father had given her in 1971 and asked if I thought it was worth fixing. I told her, if you love it, it's already fixed. That's the thing about being a woman who's survived. You become a lighthouse, even when you're tired. People don't need you to explain the storms, they just want to know you stayed standing. I didn't advertise myself as a beacon for lost souls. But somehow, they found me. Women like us, we recognize each other. We've learned how to fold grief into recipes, how to sew betrayal into cushions, and how to let the hurt live beside us without letting it win. Lydia still hadn't called. Not since that afternoon. But I knew she was watching. Too many mutual contacts in town for her not to hear the whispers. People were calling what I did graceful. Mildred handled it with such grace. But the truth, grace isn't soft. Grace is steel wrapped in silence. It's standing your ground without shouting. It's knowing exactly what was done to you and choosing not to let it destroy your voice. I didn't win because I fought back. I won because I stopped waiting for an invitation. One morning, Harold asked if I wanted to add a dish to the menu with my name on it. Something cozy, he said. Something that says she built this with her hands. I thought for a moment. Call it no seat at the table, I said. He raised an eyebrow. Really? Yes, I replied. When people ask, we'll tell them it's roast chicken with lemon and blueberry glaze, served with dignity. He laughed for a full minute. God, I've missed your humor. It wasn't lost, I said, just buried under all that politeness. That dish sold out every Friday. One day a letter came, no return address, but I knew the handwriting. Lydia, inside, a short note. No apology, but 3 simple lines. I don't know how to come back from this, but I know I was wrong. If you ever want to talk, I'll be here. I read it twice, folded it and put it away. I didn't respond. Not yet, maybe not ever. Not because I hated her, I didn't. But some bridges don't need to be burned. They just need to stay closed until both sides are ready to meet without excuses. And for now, I had work to do. A kitchen full of women who saw me as something solid. I'd spent too many years shrinking, letting others write my story. Now I was writing it with my own hands. They still come, you know, some older, some younger, some loud, some quiet. They come alone with grandkids, or just with a tote bag and a look that says, I don't know where else to be today. They sit by the window, the same window I sat by all those years ago when Lydia told me there was no seat for me. They order the soup, the chicken, the pie. They linger longer than necessary, and sometimes before they leave, they lean in and whisper, I saw what you did. I wish I had your strength. I didn't think we were allowed to start again. And I tell them the truth, plain and clear. You are. You're allowed to take up space. You're allowed to stop apologizing. You're allowed to return to yourself, even if no one notices right away. Even if they say you're just a grandmother, just a helper, just a shadow in someone else's story. No, I say. You were the story. You always were. Nathan works full-time now. He knows the kitchen layout better than I do. Carmen teases him, calling him mini boss. He rolls his eyes, but I can tell he likes it. Last week, he got a tattoo, something small on his wrist. His mother hasn't seen it yet, but I have. It says MK,